are still looking at the introduction, and again I will keep on emphasizing this one, that we are making our foundation firm. So we need to understand so many concepts that are used in economics so that they can help us understand the preceding topics. If we don't understand these concepts now, it may not be very easy for us to grasp what is coming. So that's why we are taking a lot of time on the introduction, and also on what some of you may think that it is not important, but it is very important. The fundamental questions of economics is our next kind of area of consideration, and these are mainly asked by producers when making production decisions in relation to the scarce resources. They are not questions of the consumers in this matter. We are going to look at the producer and how he answers these questions. And the first question is, what to produce? What to produce? So it is the producer who asks himself that, what am I going to produce? Well, in most cases, this one will depend on the resources available and the demand for the commodity. Where a producer has resources that can produce a given commodity, then automatically the choice follows the availability of the resources. And another question is, the commodity you have chosen to produce, one that is highly demanded. Why do we need to have a commodity that is highly demanded? Because the major objective of a producer is to maximize profits. If the commodity is not demanded, then forget about the profits. So when you are choosing the commodity to produce as a producer, make sure that you choose that commodity that is highly demanded. Consumers are ready to pay a price for it, and they are going to be supporting you so that your resources are not wasted. So a rational producer will be choosing to produce that commodity which is highly demanded and is attracting a high price in order to get high prices. Then the other question is how to produce. How to produce. How to produce. We have seen that this one depends on resources available and demand for the product, for the good. So these two considerations will be the ones to make you answer that question. Whereas how to produce depends on the technology available and its affordability. So how to produce simply deals with the methods of production that a producer has to select to employ in his production process, or whether a factory, whether a farm, and that kind of thing. And we find that as far as technology is concerned, we have three types of technology from which the producer has to choose from. Either it is labor intensive, or capital intensive, or intermediate, also known as neutral. So now availability, technology available in your economy. What do you have in plentiful supply and maybe at affordable prices? Can you afford the machines? Are they there? Can you afford the labor? Is it available in plenty? And for that matter, you are going to choose a labor intensive depending on the availability of the factor that can be used in your production process. Technology is simply a matter of combination of factors of production to come up with a given level of output. And in most cases, the combination of capital and labor. Land is already there fixed, and you simply have to utilize it. And maybe the entrepreneurship, the organizer, so we may include him in the labor, the skilled labor, and so on. So for that matter, whenever we are talking of method of production or technology, it is mainly to deal with choosing from the labor or choosing from the capital. And when it is intermediate, you combine capital and labor in equal proportion so that none is more than the other in the production process, and that's why we call it neutral. It doesn't have any bias towards one and maybe less of the other, unlike the labor intensive and the capital intensive. Technology is regarded to be labor intensive where it uses more labor in the production process compared relative to capital. So where you have unabundant labor, especially in the agriculture sector in the developing countries of today, they have more labor simply because it is unskilled and cheap. That's where the word affordability comes in. We can afford it because it is cheap and it's in plentiful supply. So that's why producers here mainly choose to employ the labor-intensive method of production, because the laborers are there and they are not going to pinch the producer by taking a bigger part of his profitability by paying them higher wages. No, they are usually paid relatively lower wages because they lack the skills and they are in plentiful supply. Yet capital is lacking. Though we find that in some areas, especially the manufacturing and industrial sector, labor may not be desired because we need efficiency and high rates of productivity. So in our industrial sectors in the developing countries, usually the choice is the capital intensive. If you get a tour of our major industries that are manufacturing clothing, sugar, and so on, you can be able to get the answer or the picture of what I'm telling you. There is a high rate of automation, a high rate of mechanization in the production process, and that's when we say the choice of those producers was the capital intensive, because they are producing on a large scale. They have to save time and they have to save on the cost of production. Since labor may sometimes demand for an increase in the wages, they may strike, but machines never strike. The moment they break down, you can repair them or you can even replace them and that kind of thing. So how to produce in most cases is answered by examining the technology available, what is available in plenty, and is it affordable to you as a producer. And those are the options which are there, and you can either have labor intensive, capital intensive, or the neutral one where you employ both capital and labor in equal proportions. Another question is when to produce. When to produce. So a producer has to ask himself which is the right time for him to produce. For example, Christmas is we are about to enjoy Christmas. And what are the products that should be produced at this time? So you have to know what commodities people want at a particular time, and the issue of when mainly deals with time, the right timing. And for a producer, right timing is important because you are aiming at profitability. If you produce at the wrong time, then you are going to be out of business as nobody will be selling. And you are not producing for yourself. You are producing for the consumers. The customer is the king. If he's not there, then nobody will be buying your product. So produce at the right time when you know that they'll be buying or they'll be demanding your commodity so that you don't run out of business. So rational producer chooses to produce at that time when the demand for the product is very high or highest in order to have maximum profitability. Then another question is where to produce. Where, this is also very important, where to produce. And this deals with location or site of the farm. Here I've said that when to produce deals with right time. And the right time is when demand, right time is when demand is high for high profits. Whereas where to produce is to deal with the location of the farm, and the location in most cases is governed by a number of factors where you have to consider the source of raw materials. We are going to look at two mainly: raw material source or market vicinity to market. So these are going to be expounded on in the topic of production, where we shall be looking at the location of production units by a producer and which factors should be put into consideration. But now we are just having an introduction, which introduction is going to help us understand what is coming much more better. So where to produce, don't simply locate yourself anywhere, because you may end up not making any profit out of it. You need to be located near the source of raw materials, and you have to weigh, is the raw material bulky? Is the raw material perishable? If it is highly perishable, then you locate your production unit at the or near the source of the raw material. And that is why most of you have observed that most of the tea processing industries are located within the tea plantations themselves. Such that as soon as the tea leaves are picked, they are processed there and then to have high quality tea leaves. Yet you find that for the cement, it is also located near the factories are located near the source of the raw material. Why? Cement is heavy. Both the raw material and the final product are heavy, but it's better to process the raw at the source, so that's why the industries are there, and then later on transport the ready cement to the market. So even that one will locate itself near the source of the raw material, because there is much that comes out as a waste product which has to be thrown, and if it was to be transported and processed at a faraway place, the cost of transport would be too much and reducing the profitability. Then vicinity to the market, we also have near source of power. Those industries which require a lot of energy, they need to be near the source of power. But this has been, let's say, reduced. If you are looking at power as electricity, no, there is no more need for us all in Uganda to be located in Jinja, where we have the dams and providing us with the power, simply because our hydroelectricity can be transmitted via cables to the various places, so it can reach you anywhere, and at least that one has been solved. So you can locate your farm anywhere, not because you are near the source of power, but because power can come to you. It is now the power coming to you instead of you going to where the power is. But vicinity or near to the market is very important, especially for those commodities which are fragile. If you are a producer who has chosen to produce commodities that are fragile and they break, it's good that your industry is near the market. As soon as you produce them, they are marketed and they go away, and you avoid those losses of breakages and so on. But if they are not breakable, don't be near the market. Look for another attracting factor for your location, and then transport the commodities to the market. So this question of where to produce is mainly choosing the location or site of your farm, and there are very many issues under consideration that you have to put in mind before you actually set your farm or premises in that particular place. Then another question is for whom to produce. Producers have to find for whom. whom to produce. For whom to produce. Again, this deals with what category of customers are you considering? Are they high income customers? Are they medium income customers? Or are they low income customers? So these various categories of customers have various needs. As we saw in the scale of preference, each one has a scale of preference. What a rich man wants is not what the low income earner will. Okay, they may want them, but then they may not afford them. So affordability and needing are quite different. You may need, but you may not afford. And that's what demand is all about. Effective demand, as you may have seen in your demand issue. You may have the demand, the desire, but you have the ability to pay. Can you back it with monetary payment for that good, and then you take it? So most of us have that desire, but then the ability to pay is limited because of the limited resources again. Money is not enough for us to buy whatever we want. So you have to know, for whom are you producing? Are you producing for the high income earners? Then the commodities of that class will be having a different kind of price level. Medium income, you know what products they want. And the Chinese have gone a long way in classifying their customers. So you find that in China, they are products of for different countries. They are producing made in China, but for America. Made in China for Asia. Made in China for Europe. Made in China for Africa. And you find that those for Africa are usually of a low quality. You buy a pair of shoes and the next day the sole is off. Because that's what we can afford. We can't offer too much money for something that is highly durable. So they produce for us according to our levels of income. So even here in Uganda, you have to know the category of customers you are going to be serving. And therefore you have to know for whom are you producing, not just producing at random, not knowing who is going to buy. So look for that customer who is ready to pay the price for your product so that you are able to maximize your profits. So those are the major economic questions, and we are still introducing more and more concepts, and now we come to another one, basic economic concepts. And our number one is going to be wealth. We saw it in our definition of economics. According to Adam Smith, he was emphasizing creation of wealth as one of his definitions in economics. In his book, Wealth of a Nation. So it means that wealth in economics is very important. But we have to know what is wealth. So wealth is simply a state of goods existing at a particular time. State of goods. Why are we talking of goods? Because we also have services, but services are intangible, as we're going to see. You cannot see them, but what you can see, that is their state. You can see them and we can touch them. So state of goods existing at a particular time. And why are we interested in time? Because wealth, it changes. It can increase or it can decrease. It is not stationary, it's not stagnant, it is dynamic, keeps on changing. You can have wealth today and tomorrow you have nothing. So that's why time is important. A person may be rich today and you find that the next day is poor, or a poor person today with no wealth at all may inherit and become the boss or the big boss of that area, and so on. So we can have also another definition of wealth, which is the net value of tangible and financial assets owned by the state or a person at a particular time. This now brings in the net value, and whenever you look at net, either you have taken away depreciation or the profits and or the losses and so on, but bringing in again the tangible issue and the monetary kind of consideration of those assets, and these are either owned by the state or an individual, and also at a particular time. A nation can also have its own wealth. Uganda has its own wealth, and we find that those are the issues or assets which are owned publicly, whether it is the current president or the other one who will come. They will all come, and those assets still belong to Uganda, but not to those particular presidents. So that is national or country or government or state wealth. And even a person himself can have his own kind of wealth. So having known that wealth are the set of goods and services existing at a particular time, which can belong to either an individual or to the government, and it can be also converted into monetary terms, what are its general characteristics. Characteristics of wealth. How can we be able to identify wealth? So one of them is that wealth is relatively scarce. Relatively scarce, that is not abundant, so that it can retain its value. We need it to be valuable, so that if you can value it, then you can also try to protect it. Otherwise, something which is not valuable, you don't need to protect it, and that kind of thing. So wealth must be relatively scarce so that people can value it. And it's not easily obtained, like maybe picking stones. Again, we shall be looking at money and looking at the values of money. So if wealth, money is also wealth, they share this kind of common characteristic. Even money should be relatively scarce, so that it's not abundant and you cannot easily come across it. If we are to use stones as money, then everybody would be rich, because everybody will simply go pick any stones and use them to buy goods and services. But we need something which is not abundant, and you shall look at the origin of money and you'll be able to see the precious stones that once performed that function of money, and they were disqualified and left out because they were abundant, and they had to resort to those items which were relatively scarce. Then wealth should possess utility. Wealth should possess utility. Should possess utility or satisfaction to the owner. Meaning that the moment you possess your wealth, you feel that you are contented, you are happy. And if you are not happy with whatever you are possessing, it means that that is not wealth. So for wealth to be regarded as wealth, it should be able to give you that kind of contentment. You feel happy that actually, yeah, now I have my house, it's there, and you are happy. You have my car, it's there, and you feel very happy. Wealth should also have an exchange value. Wealth should have an exchange value. Should have an exchange value. And that exchange value in economics is what we call price. So you should pay a price for wealth. Wealth is not free. No. You have to amass it through purchases. And those purchases are usually in monetary terms or otherwise. Then ownership of wealth is transferable. Ownership of wealth is transferable. Ownership of wealth is transferable. That is, can change from one person to another. From one person to another. That is why some people get rich just overnight because of inheritance. What you didn't have today, and maybe you become the heir of your father or any other person, and whatever wealth he or she may have amassed now becomes yours. Why? Because wealth has that characteristic of being transferable, moving from one person to another, or even from one country to another. Wealth can move across boundaries and across borders. Forms of wealth. Forms of wealth. Having known their characteristics, now we need to know their form. In what form can we be able to hold our wealth? Forms of wealth. Forms of wealth. First, we have what we call business wealth. Business wealth. And as the term stands, that means that we are looking at wealth which is there to make more and more wealth. These are assets owned by firms, basically to make economic profits. Owned by firms, basically to make profits. Examples are factories, schools, and many others. They can all be falling into that category. Even the business store. Business store. That is the goods you have in stock in your shop, and you are having them stocked there for selling purposes and getting profit out of them. They fall in that category of business wealth. You own them. They are transferable. They give you satisfaction. They have an exchange value. So business stock also satisfies the definition of wealth in general. Then we have the personal wealth. Personal wealth. Personal wealth. And these are assets belonging to an individual person. Belonging to an individual person. Individual person exclusively. That one is important. The moment it is personal, it is yours and not for any other person, and we find that you enjoy or you get satisfaction from it as an individual. The person gets satisfaction as an individual. As an individual, but not as a group. No, it only benefits the individual owner and not the group. And you have examples of cars, houses, and many others which a person may accumulate over time. Then we have the third category or third form of wealth, which is the social, also known as public wealth. Public wealth. Social or public wealth. This is also known as collective wealth, and it is owned by the state or government on behalf of the people, and it is to benefit everybody. Owned, who is the owner? It is the state. Owned by state, and for the benefit of everybody. For the benefit of all people. All people in the economy. In the economy. E.g., roads, public hospitals, public parks, etc. So all those are used collectively, and nobody can refuse any other person to use it, because you are not the owner. They are owned by the government, and government is us, the people, all of us. So we are entitled to their enjoyment at any one given material time. So that was wealth. And now our consideration of basic concepts takes us to types of goods. Types of goods. We have said that in an economy we have goods and services, but what is a good, or what are the various categories of goods that are available to us in an economy, and how can we distinguish one good from the other as learners of economics or people that are practicing economics. So let's begin with an economic good.